President Obama's visit to the ROK follows reports that Pyongyang detained an American tourist. According to DPRK state media, the 24-year-old man was detained for, quote, rash behavior as he was trying to enter the country. For more analysis on this volatile region, I'm joined by Raymond Tanter, former member of the White House National Security Council during the Reagan-Bush Administration. Welcome back to the show, Mr. Tanter. First, I'd like to get your thoughts on the U.S. president's stop in the ROK so far. Any surprises? Well,
one surprise was that the trip was not planned in advance. That is to say, President Obama wasn't going to go to South Korea, but events overcame that, and I'm very pleased that he went. So the most important thing that came out of that, I believe, is the way he became commander-in-grief, not just commander-in-chief, with respect to the tragedy, with respect to the high school students. That was one of the high points in his trip. Another high point was that he took a position somewhere in between both South Korea on one hand and Japan on the other hand, without irritating either side. And those were the high points.
You know, there have been reports of activity, as Shane mentioned in his report, at one of the DPRK nuclear test sites. And do you think that this meeting between the U.S. president and South Korea's president will make any difference?
No, North Korea Kim Jong-un marches to his own drum. He is intent on showing the world that he has the bomb, and he says, don't forget about me when you're working on Ukraine, you're working on Iran. I'm here too, so you need to pay attention to me. And what that means is that he wants to create a crisis in order to resolve the crisis by getting assistance, food assistance and various other kinds of assistance from the West. And U.S. policy is constrained by two factors. One is the lack of an external power like China that bails out North Korea with assistance. And the other factor is the internal. There's no effective domestic opposition against the Kim Jong-un dynasty. So in Iran, you have a National Council of Resistance of Iran, you have the Green Movement, you have various others who can stand up and say, sanctions are hurting us, so let us do something different to the Ayatollahs who run Iran.
What do you make of these reports that the DPRK detained an American tourist? You know, these reports come out on the same day that the U.S. president arrives in South Korea. Do you think it's curious timing?
Yes, it is curious time. I believe that this event happened some weeks ago, and that the North Korean regime decided to release this at the moment in order to embarrass the United States. Elaine, I would not make a tourist visit to North Korea. And this is not, what are you going to do there? Change the country?
Do you think there is actually a U.S. citizen there at this point? I mean, or is this...
Well, there are several U.S. American citizens there under detention.
What do you think is the most important issue to come out of this meeting between Mr. Obama and President Park? You know, they did come out and say they stand shoulder to shoulder regarding the DPRK. And I wanted to take a look at this Asia trip so far. Would you consider it a success?
Well, I think that the trip overall was a success. You don't have the movement toward agreement on the trade issues nearly as much as agreement on the security issues, and that's number one. Number two, the United States has shored up its idea of balancing, not away from Europe for Asia, but being able to focus on Europe and focus on Asia at the same time. So I think President Obama did a pretty good job.
But, you know, there is a lot of talk about this TPP, yes, that, you know, the situation has not been resolved at all. This was a good chance for that to happen, but, you know, where does that go now?
Well, as long as North Korea is threatening a fourth nuclear test and missile test and so forth, and as long as there's a dispute on between Japan and China with respect to the Siku Islands, then the trade issues become what is called low politics. But you're right, Elaine, eventually these low politics will rise up and become the high politics.
All right, Raymond Tanter, as always, we appreciate your perspective. Thank you for joining us here on the show.
You're welcome.